Hello again. Today we're doing decoupage. This is just being laid with some satin poly. I found that it doesn't really matter what kind, what brand. But I do have this awesome frame on this piece, so I'm utilizing that because it just makes things so much easier and it gives me a spot to put it, and it's just, an added bonus. So I have a foam brush that I am just putting the poly within the frame. I'm trying my hardest not to get it on the edge of the frame. When I do get it on the edge of the frame, I take my finger, you can take something else, and I just make sure it's dry so that when I go to lay down the paper, it only sticks to what's wet. And that will just make the whole process a lot easier. And so here I'm just lining up the very top, so that's one less edge to have to deal with, and then smoothing it on. This is a tissue paper, so I just know that it's going to be wrinkly. If you don't want any wrinkles at all, your best bet is to use something thicker like wallpaper perhaps. But I know this is going to be wrinkly. It doesn't bother me. I actually like the texture in it. So what I'm using, it's this awesome raven, crow, whatever blackbird you wish. But I've been waiting to use him, and I just thought this piece would be perfect because they fit just so well inside the frames here. So that's what I did. And then I just made sure I pushed it into the edges, and I'm taking a razor blade and slicing down along the inner seam there, and that will help pull the paper out. Now if it's still too wet, I kind of get this in an in-between area. If it's too wet, you're going to tear a bunch of your paper, but if it's too dry, it's going to kind of stick to anything on the outside of the frame, which I don't want. So I'm kind of like at a medium spot where it's not super wet and not super dry. But yeah, I'm just going to run around the edge of the frame with a razor blade and gently, that is the key here, gently pull off the paper as you go. And sometimes you can set the blade against the paper and pull at the same time. That way it holds it against where you want it to stay, and you're pulling up the paper so that it doesn't tear off. But you just want to be extra careful around the little corners, because sometimes the corners will pull extra poly, which will then, of course, be a little more wet there, which makes it more delicate. And then I'll just run through and kind of press everything down again. Make sure it's as smooth as I can get it, no bubbles or anything like that. And then there's a second coat of poly. So you can do as many coats as you want. This piece is on the side and it's not going to get a lot of traffic to it. There won't be any reason for it to have any wear, and it's inset in the frame, so there's no corners that will be sticking up. So it's a really easy piece to do. So all I'm doing is 2 coats of poly on this one. But as I said, you can totally do more if you're doing something on the top or something maybe on drawers that would get a little more handling. But this won't have any handling at all, so it doesn't really need a ton of protection. But yeah, I just go around and make sure I get all of the corners really well and all the edges really well so that those are laid down. And then as you can see, I'm only doing the frame in poly. That's strictly because I chose to seal this piece in wax. Otherwise, you could do the entire piece in poly. Here's the finished result. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope it was helpful for some of you. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you next week.